Unlike this video, which is recorded in 4K 60, the Switch 2 may not play games in 4K 60, and I'm going to share some reasons why I think that. So when the Switch 2 trailer was released, I recorded an episode of my podcast, the Three Amigos podcast, with my two co-hosts, and my two co-hosts were debating the side that the Switch 2 will play games in 4K, whereas I was debating the side that it won't play games. And I have a few reasons why, a few points I want to make. And this is all just speculation and assumptions, but hear me out here. Nintendo needs to compete with their competitors, which, let's face it, at this time, the PlayStation 5 is the only real console competitor to the Switch, since Xbox is just porting their games onto everything else, just hanging out on the street corner, handing out its games for cash. And if the Switch 2 has 4K gaming with 60 frames while it's docked mode, as well as the included features that are rumored and confirmed to be on the Switch 2, such as the mouse-like feature of the Joy-Cons, the magnetic Joy-Cons, the built-in microphone, the extra USB-C port, the improved joysticks, the bigger screen, bigger buttons, the Switch 2 has to cost around $400 or more seemingly. And people might choose to save money by buying a PS5 digital if the Switch 2 costs more than $400. And if they get the PS5 digital, they're not only going to save money, but they're going to have games that will play better and run better with better performance and resolution and frame rate. And Nintendo also has to compete with their handheld PC competitors, the handheld PC market, such as the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, whatever Asus has, I can't remember the name of that one, but those PC handheld devices cost over $500, over $600, and you can save money by buying the base model Steam Deck, which is under $400 with the LCD screen and the horrible battery life. But even those expensive PC handhelds, they can't play games in 4K even if you dock them to a monitor or a TV. The Steam Deck in particular does have an option to dock it to a monitor or TV, and you're probably going to get at max 900p when it's docked on the TV or monitor, and it's a device that costs over $500. So if the Switch can be docked at 4K and 60 frames per second and then play handheld games maybe at 1080p, then it would end up costing more than $500, maybe more than $600, comparing it to the Steam Deck. And if that's the case, if it's going to cost that much money, it's going to push the customers, the consumer, to just go buy a Steam Deck for a cheaper price, even the Steam Deck LCD screen for just under $400 or under $500, rather than pay over $600 for a Switch 2. The current Switch was often labeled as like the highest selling console of the past few months, past few years, especially during 2020 because of that lower price tag. The Switch OLED costing $350, the Switch LCD is around $300, I believe, and of course the Switch Lite is $200 for that model. So the Switch had that selling point, that positive note that it was the cheapest console you can get. Whether you're focused on console gaming at home or portable, you can have that option for the cheapest console. And Nintendo wants to continue that trend of having the consumer pay less for their console, so more people will be interested in buying the Switch 2 rather than paying more money for their new console, which would then push them to cheaper alternatives. And 4K games would also need more storage space to download the games, whether you are downloading it on the internal hard drive or on a micro SD, or if Nintendo are going to have the games saved on their Switch 2 cartridges, it's going to be too expensive for them to manufacture those cards that need more storage for the 4K games, and it's going to be much more expensive for the third-party developers to purchase those cards to then put their games on it. The current Switch cartridges, I believe, come in two different sizes. They have a 32GB card and a 64GB card. That is, as I said, the cartridge for the game itself that you would put in the Switch. And the third-party developers very commonly would choose the 32GB card because it'll cause them to save money on getting these cards manufactured for their games, and then they force you to download the remainder of that game's data onto your Switch or onto your micro SD because they didn't want to pay extra money for the larger size cartridge. So if they're going to make 4K games, which obviously will need more storage space to download onto a cartridge, you really think these third-party developers are going to pay more money for those larger size cards when they already refuse to do it for the current Switch model? I don't think so. And if they did go that route, if they did try to sell larger size cartridges, they may even charge, or most likely they would charge the consumer more money for the games, probably $70, probably more. We do see $70 games now for PlayStation and Xbox. Switch had a couple of $70 games, which was Tears of the Kingdom and Mortal Kombat 1, which don't buy Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch, just don't buy Mortal Kombat 1 at all anyway. But if they go that route by having the 4K games requiring larger size cartridges, they're going to charge the consumer more money and the developers more money to put the games on the cartridges. And if the Switch 2 continues to use the micro SD card like it does in the current model, then customers would possibly theoretically have to purchase new micro SD cards that will have a higher read and write speed and also with more storage available on it. I currently have a 400 gigabyte card, but if I'm going to need one that has faster read and write speeds, I'm going to have to pay a lot more money to get one of those cards for the Switch 2 if that would be the case. And those cards will only get more expensive the more you look at more storage, and the faster speed is going to just cost a lot more money than it does for any other Switch SD card that you can find, a micro SD card out there. Now remember, the Nintendo Switch is a family friendly console. Their primary target audience is kids who want to play Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, etc. So I really doubt that they will make a console that might require a lot of different complicated factors, a lot of additional hardware, like a faster micro SD card, a much more expensive micro SD card, just to play these games. And at that point, parents might be better off just buying their kids a current Switch model, a Switch OLED, Switch LCD, or Switch Lite, or they buy them a PS5 digital and buy their games digitally until they get them a disc drive if they want to go the physical route, especially when games on PlayStation does go on sale pretty often, both on the PlayStation Store and for physical copies. They do go on sale sometimes here and there. And you know, the Switch first party games almost never go on sale. We are 8 years into the console, and most of, if not all, the Switch first party games are still $60, $70 for Tears of the Kingdom. If you want to get Mario Odyssey, $60. You want to get Breath of the Wild, Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Mario Wonder, Mario 3D World, Kirby. They're all $60, Tears of the Kingdom $70. You can get them slightly cheaper on Amazon for $50, maybe used at GameStop for 50 something, 40 something, but the only time you see these games, the first party games, really go on sale is around Black Friday. But we're 8 years in and the Switch is still having their first party games cost full price. So people might want to go the other route for PlayStation and get games that are on sale. Switch 2 will be no different, in my opinion. It's going to have games, first party games, not go on any price cut or discount, except for Black Friday and maybe an occasional like a Mario Day sale for the Mario games, which is March 10th. So that is also another thing to consider with Nintendo and what they do with the cost. Now I can maybe see Nintendo create a Switch console that is only playable docked at home, so not much of a handheld or tabletop portable, nothing available in that aspect, like a Switch 2 that is only for a home console, cannot be taken out of the home, cannot be undocked, it's just docked permanently, whether it's a Switch 2 OLED or a Switch 2 Home, whatever they want to call it. And if that is what they're going to do to have the Switch upscale to 4K, you're going to get better 4K gaming on a PS5 or an Xbox Series anyway. And we already saw the Switch do this with the Switch Lite model, only being handheld and can't be docked onto a TV, can't be played on tabletop mode, is just a handheld. And we've seen Nintendo do these kind of iterations in the past. We've had a 3DS and then a 2DS. We had a new 3DS and a new 2DS. There was even a smaller black and red Wii. And of course the Switch Lite as the handheld only Switch. So I could maybe see Nintendo making a Switch 2 that is only playable at home and docked, and it'll maybe upscale to 4K. But again, you're going to have better 4K gaming on PlayStation or Xbox Series X compared to what Nintendo could possibly do. Now, there are rumors that the Switch 2 will be on the same level of performance as an Xbox Series S, which is not terrible. I actually had a Series S as my first next-gen, now current-gen console, and I actually liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. The games looked fine for me. I didn't have too many complaints except for the storage that was on the console, not as big enough storage, but I believe the Series S outputs at maximum 1440p, and if that's what the Switch 2 is going to do, that's fine. 1440p is okay. My monitor can do 1440p at 120 Hz, so I'll play something like Spider-Man 2 in a slightly lower resolution, but a much more faster frame rate performance. And if the Switch 2 does 1440p with 60 frames, then that's okay. That's fine, but it won't be 4K. I don't think it's going to reach the maximum 4K. Now, if you look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and you look at either Best Buy's posting of it or GameStop or Amazon, and you look at the features of the game, one of the biggest features, the biggest selling point is that you can play 4-player split screen while it's docked and play 1080p 60 frames. And I have yet to see another game that will say you can play docked 1080p 60 frames besides Mario Kart 8. And most games on the Switch will probably run 1080p 30 frames, some will go up to 60, some will be less than 1080p and run at 30 or 60 frames, but most commonly is going to run at 30 frames per second. So I could see the Switch 2's biggest feature is most games will maximize at 1080p 60 frames, which is actually much, a bit more powerful than the current Switch and have that better performance. And then maybe handheld would be like 900p, around that resolution, similar to a Steam Deck, but it'll also help them to keep costs low and not charge an arm and a leg for a 4K handheld console. But I could see the Switch doing 1080p 60 for a majority of their games. Side note, speaking of Mario Kart, I know everyone's making fun of Donkey Kong and Bowser in the Mario Kart portion of the Switch 2 trailer, but maybe they look that way, they look funny because the trailer is already kind of scaled down to be put onto the YouTube video, and of course YouTube has their rendering that makes it scale down a little bit more. But maybe it's also that these characters are like a classic version, like classic Donkey Kong, classic Bowser, because the game is going to support 24-player multiplayer, and perhaps they want to increase the roster size by including some classic characters, because I think an 8-bit Mario would be really cool to see in Mario Kart. This little funny looking 8-bit little Super Mario in the kart would be funny. So maybe there's a classic DK, classic Bowser. Maybe that's why they look the way they do. Maybe it's just the downscaling of the YouTube processing, but give those characters a break. I mean, come on. And you also have people who say that the Switch 2 is going to have games on the first gen Switch run much better on the second Switch with the backwards compatibility. And that's not necessarily true, because like any other console, when you have a game that is playable on the newer console, they have an update that's released to make the game perform better on the newer console, take advantage of the newer specs. So a game like Arkham Knight, for example, which runs horrible on Switch, especially in the Batmobile, runs completely horrible. If it is backwards compatible on the Switch 2, it's not going to just run better automatically. They're going to have to put an update for that game to then run better on the Switch 2. And I hope they do, because I actually like Arkham Knight in a way. It's a really good superhero game for me to have some fun with, just not on the Switch. And I hate playing it on the Switch in its current state, its current performance. And when it comes to games that won't be backwards compatible, the rumors seem to suggest that those games would be like Nintendo Labo and Ring Fit Adventures, because they do use the smaller current Joy-Con with the rail system for some of those things. Like the Ring Fit does use the rail system to play the game, as well as the IR sensor for your heart rate check. But I think every other game besides that, besides those niche games, will be backwards compatible on the Switch. But I don't think every game will get that update to play the game in better performance and frame rate and visuals on the Switch 2. I'm sure a majority, if not all, the first party Switch games will get that, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey. If Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will be backwards compatible, I can see them saying no, because Mario Kart 9 is a launch title. It'll be very shady on Nintendo's part if they did that. But I can see first party games getting that update to run better on the Switch 2. Now the rumors do state that the Switch 2 may have an LCD screen and not an OLED, so do keep that in mind. And if it is true, you can take that aspect of it, the LCD screen, plus all the features that are either confirmed or rumored that they want to put on the Switch 2, and that is how you would know that they're going to keep the cost low and not charge you an arm and a leg to then lose to the competitors. You have the LCD screen, you have the mouse feature, you have the built-in microphone, the second USB-C port, the magnetic Joy-Con. If you think about it this way, lower the cost and save money by putting the LCD screen instead of an OLED, and that allows them to add those extra features and not have the Switch 2 be 4K, and they can then charge around $375 to $400 for the console. And my prediction is that it will sell for around $375 to $400, but I'm telling you, it may not run 4K games at all. It may hopefully max out at 1440p 2K resolution, but I could see it also realistically maxing out at 1080p 60 for majority of the games, and maybe they'll do a revision halfway down the life cycle, like Switch 2 Pro. We might see that, or this Switch 2 is technically the Switch Pro. So I hope this video made a lot of sense to you, and I hope you were able to see what I'm talking about. And just to recap everything real quickly, all the features that they want to put on the Switch 2 is gonna have to, they gotta make sacrifices to keep the price low so they don't lose customers to PlayStation, don't lose customers to Steam Deck or ROG. If you look at what is required to make a 4K game run with the storage requirements and the performance, I think they're not gonna go the 4K route and then have you pay more money than what they already want you to pay. And it's unfortunate, but that's the hard truth that you have to really sit with. But again, this is all just speculations and assumptions, just based on rumors and leaks. We will know more when the next Direct will be out in April, the Switch 2 Direct, which will come out in April, and hopefully we'll see more titles that'll be available for launch or post-launch. Maybe a new Zelda, maybe an update for Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, maybe something with Mario Kart 9, maybe more news on some Metroid games. I mean, who knows? I personally would love to see some more Nintendo IPs from the past make a current day comeback. Like F-Zero needs a comeback, besides F-Zero 99. But that's gonna be my video for today. So thank you guys for watching this video, and let me know what you think down below. Do you think the Switch 2 will be 4K, and if so, why do you think that? Do you think that do you agree with me and say that it's gonna be too much of a task, too much of a hassle to make the games run 4K, and you're fine with 1080p 60 frames? Let me know down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.